Love, exciting and new.
Hello, Hannah Waddingham here. Have you seen the fabulous new Sun Princess? World-class entertainment, exceptional dining, and the greatest pizza ever.
It's a love.
Don't miss our Come Aboard sale with up to 40% off and free room upgrades. Visit princess.com or call your travel advisor to book. Princess Cruises. Terms and restrictions apply. Offer ends 2/28/25. Ships of Bermudan and British Registry.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Single Tracks Podcast. My name is Jeff, and today my guest is Cory Wallace. Cory is the reigning 6-time world solo 24-hour mountain bike champion and is the head organizer for the Rockies 24 race in Canmore, Alberta. His mountain bike adventures have taken him all over the world, inspiring riders and raising funds for various humanitarian causes along the way. Thanks for joining me, Cory.
Yes, it's my pleasure to connect with you finally.
Yeah, from like pretty far away. You're in Colombia right now, right?
Yeah, I just arrived here a couple of days ago to get ready for an 8-day bikepacking race.
Yeah, so crazy. So how did you first get interested in endurance mountain bike racing?
Well, growing up in Jasper, Alberta, we had access to all the Rocky Mountain trails and good fishing spots. And I would just ride my bike, basically staying in shape for hockey.
Oh.
And access some fishing holes.
Yeah.
And I just enjoyed it, the freedom I had on my bike. And as the hockey aspirations kind of faded away, I saw an opportunity in cycling. And it seemed like my specialty was the longer it went, the better it was for me. So
yeah, interesting.
Natural progression. And yeah, so I did a bunch of short races when I was younger, in my late teens, and then took a break to go tree planting and go to school. But I wanted to come back as an endurance mountain bike racer. And I messaged my friend Dick Cox from Kona. I knew him from all his bike shop visits in Jasper. And I just messaged him saying, like, hey, does Kona have a spot for like an endurance rider? And at that point, marathon racing wasn't very big. And he said, like, not now, but we'll keep an eye on you and let you know if anything changes. And there's kind of good motivation to go down to the 24 hours of adrenaline. And so I raced out a couple years. And then La Ruta de Conquistador in Costa Rica. And both those events had good results. And then, yeah, Kona called me up and asked if I wanted to come join the team for the season. Just join them for like BC Bike Race. And so I think that year I got like a bike and some clothes off them.
Okay.
But I was just like super stoked to hang out with the team guys. Then it was like Chris Sneddon and Barry Wicks. They were owning the BC Bike Race back then. And yeah, it's just like super cool. It's like a dream come true. And then, yeah, kind of took off from there.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, you were just like, I want to do this endurance biking thing. Like, does anybody want to sponsor me? And they actually responded to you and were like, well, yeah, you just gotta do some races. Is that kind of how it went?
Kind of a long lasting relationship with Dick from Kona Bikes. Just from all his visits to Jasper. And I had a few good results when I was in my junior years. So it's kind of on the radar, I guess, for being all right.
Yeah.
But it's really the marathon side which helped me get into the scene. And yeah, when I decided I wanted to get back into it, I'd been off my bike for a couple of years, like full time. So I took my bike to the tip of Chile, Punta Arenas, with a bob trailer, and I started biking north. I figured a couple months bike packing down there would get me a solid base for that season. And that trip was full of adventures and chaos, but it seemed to work.
Yeah. Wow. How much ground did you end up covering on that trip?
I ended up in Lima, Peru eventually, but it did involve a few bus rides. As my first route up the west coast of Chile, I couldn't get over a Snowden Pass. So I had to go east across in Argentina. And then I actually caught a bus up a ways to the Lakes District, like Bariloche, then crossed back into Chile. And yeah, I kept going north. And eventually I caught a bus through the Atacama Desert to finish it off to Lima.
Wow.
I remember my last 2 days, I must have ridden like 50K a day into this massive headwind. And it was about 45 degrees out.
Oof.
And I was just like, I'm never going to make it. Like I had a flight to catch. So I flipped the bike around. And what took me 2 days to do, I went back in like 4 hours to some town, caught a bus.
Oh.
Bus 8 or 10 hours to Lima.
Yeah, wow. That was quick thinking. I wouldn't have thought to do that. I would have just been like frustrated and then missed the flight. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was trying to catch buses up on the way, but it was right around Christmas time and they're all jam packed.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way was at the station if someone didn't show up. So it was like on standby.
Yeah.
So I lucked out and got on there and made my flight.
Yeah, wow. So you mentioned that you did a couple of 24-hour races. Did you start doing those only as solo, or were you ever like part of a team?
No, my buddy Dave McDowell, who ran the bike shop in Jasper, Freewheel Cycle, he was doing solo and he's like, you should come do it. And I just came off 2 months of tree planting in May and June. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and this race is end of July. So I thought, yeah, you know what, why not? Like I have good endurance right now. So I went on a bike tour for a couple weeks, down Icefields Parkway, big loop up to Hinton, back to Jasper, and then straight into the 24. And I thought I might last like 12 hours. And then, I mean, I'd never run longer than, I think, 8 hours at that point in my life. Mm-hmm. So to me, it was just like, yeah, I probably wouldn't finish. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I had a good race that year. And I made a lot of mistakes in it, but I got it done, and it kind of lit the fire. Yeah, I think that year was actually the World Championships, and I was like in the top. I was probably 20th, and then a massive rainstorm came in, and it knocked a bunch of the foreign riders out, a bunch of the Australians, and those that weren't really prepared for the cold, wet conditions. Mm-hmm. And just by default, I moved up a bunch of positions, and then the last couple laps, 5th place was in sights. Mm-hmm. And I remember in the last lap, I'd make up like 20 minutes. And I think I did my second fastest lap the whole race. Oh, wow. And meanwhile, the guy in 5th had like a complete meltdown. And I actually passed him to get the last podium spot. Oh my gosh. It was a good finish, but I remember I was laid out for 3 weeks after that one. Wow. Yeah, it seems like that's what's required in 24 solo racing. For sure. We've seen that from a lot of people. And, 10 years ago, it seemed like there were these 24-hour mountain bike races everywhere. And here in the US, you mentioned 24 hours of adrenaline. Like that was kind of the name that was associated with 24-hour racing. And I recently came across a Wikipedia article about the series that says, it appears 24 Hours of Adrenaline went out of business after their last 2017 event, with venue fees at Canmore Nordic Center being blamed as the cause. As someone who's lives kind of in the area nearby, is there any truth to this? I mean, what happened to 24 Hours of Adrenaline and kind of, by extension, 24-hour racing in general? Yeah, no, I don't know, because 24 Hours of Adrenaline had, I think, 8 races at its peak. Yeah. And then Canmore was the last one they had. Mm-hmm. And it was still selling out, like over 1,000 people, and wow, very profitable, I imagine. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think there was some internal conflicts possibly, which might have played to the downfall of it, because it started to lose traction, less and less riders would show up. Right. And I mean, the Nordic Center, it's a world-class venue, so you have to pay some money to rent it. Mm-hmm. But with the number of riders they had, I imagine they would have been fine with that. So yeah. I mean, I remember hearing that Canmore was kind of the last one that they were holding on to, and that it was wildly popular. And yeah, I guess a lot of us just wonder, like, why it went away in all the other cities. I mean, I guess, like you're saying, maybe the races weren't as well attended. Over the years, fewer people were interested, but it does seem like there's kind of a resurgence going on right now. Are you seeing that at all, based on the people you talk to or the races that you're entering? Yeah, no, totally. I think all of cycling took a hit during COVID, and that really didn't help 24-hour racing out. Yeah. And the thing about 24-hour events is that you need the numbers to make it what it is. Mm. So as soon as you don't have the numbers, it's not super cool, and it just doesn't have that atmosphere.
Right.
But the race, which has kept that atmosphere, is 24 Hours of Old Pueblo in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
It's in their 25th year, and they sell out in like an hour or two every year.
Yeah, wow.
And 2,000 racers. And I mean, the course is nothing special. It's cool out in the desert, but nothing amazing. Mm-hmm. The venue is just like a bunch of tents set up. Like, they do a good job setting up a little village in the desert, but
yeah, it's like Burning Man sort of for bikes.
It is. And what makes it is the riders and the atmosphere. So, I mean, 24-hour racing is alive and well there. In the Le Mans start, there must have been 400 or 500 people charging down the road, and it's just a cool event to be part of. So yeah, I mean, 24-hour racing, I think, has a bright future. We just need to have the numbers at the race and create the right atmosphere.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned COVID, because I mean, now I wonder if that was kind of a good reset for it. You know, I mean, like 24-hour racing had been around, and like there were plenty of races if you wanted to do one. And I guess people kind of took that for granted. And then, you know, once we were all kind of stuck inside and stuck with these like solo rides and stuff, yeah, maybe now is the time that people are like, you know what, that was a lot of fun. Like, this is a good way for me to get out and ride with a bunch of friends.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of what we see at like the Rockies too, for is the people that show up have a blast and kind of they're starting to remember how much fun it is. Where if you haven't done a 24-hour in quite a few years, it's like you just think of the night laps and how hard it's going to be. And but no, like once you're there, it's just, you know, you're with your buddies, you hammer out a few hot laps, drink some beer or whatever you want to drink, and yeah, it's supposed to be a good time, nothing too serious.
Yeah. Well, the race that you organized, the Rockies 2-4, started in 2022. So yeah, that was kind of the tail end of COVID. But I'm curious, why did you decide to start up a new 24-hour race at Canmore? Like, how long? I guess it had been like 5 years since it went away. So what made you decide or take that risk to bring it back?
My business partner and I at the time, Leighton, we both had such a good time 24-hour racing and had good memories of 24 hours of adrenaline. So when it disappeared, I mean, it kind of left a hole in the Western Canadian race scene. So I think in 2019 we approached the Nordic Center about hosting it. But at that point, they were still not doing overnight events. Like, once the 24 hours of adrenaline shut down, they kind of said that's enough for now.
Yeah. So
we went to the Okanagan and set up a 24-hour race at Silver Star and ran that in 2019. And then 2020, it got canceled. And then 2021 or 2022, we got permission to host one in Canmore, 2022. So that year we were going to host both the races. But we just didn't have the numbers in Silver Star, so we canceled that one and just focused on Canmore. And yeah, we ran it together for 2 years. And we kind of scraped by. Yeah. And my buddy, like, he has way better ways to make money. So he just said, you know what, it's too much work to not, you know, to be losing money pretty much.
Yeah. Right.
And I mean, as a bike racer, I was like, yeah, he's probably right. But I do have a bit of time in my hands and the connections in the bike industry. So I'm going to push on. I think it can succeed. So last year was a fair bit better. Had over 215 riders.
Okay, nice.
So the numbers are starting to creep up. And this year the goal is to really hit 350, 400. At that point, it's sustainable and we have a good atmosphere showing up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's starting to build. I've had great support from the community, and the races that have done it have come back. So I think we're on the right path.
Yeah. Right. There is such a history of the race being there, and yeah, it was one of the last big ones. So it seems likely that it's gonna take back off again, and maybe again it's like portending what's going to happen for the rest of the race scene as people get more excited and re-engage with 24-hour racing. You know, last year you won your 6th World Solo 24-hour mountain bike championship. And so, and then this year, obviously, sounds like you're going to go for your 7th. How do you prepare for a 24-hour solo race?
Well, it's kind of like a 12-month preparation.
Oh, wow.
It kind of starts it started over in the Himalayas in November with some big adventures and exploring around the country.
Mm-hmm.
So like November, December is just like huge days on the bike going all over the place.
What's a huge day?
Well, Christoph Sauser joined me for a couple of weeks. We went to the west side of Nepal and started cycling across. And he had, I think, 13 days. We were on a bit of a schedule. Mm-hmm. And we really wanted to hit over half the country and do the Annapurna circuit at the end.
Whoa.
So we were riding basically from when we woke up till an hour or two into the dark.
Wow.
So basically 12-hour days, 8 to 10 hours with the wheels moving.
Yeah. Whoa.
So we did that nonstop for 13 days, and he had to fly home. And then I continued on the same thing for basically 5 weeks.
Wow.
And then as the season gets closer, I try and dial it back a little bit and focus a bit more on intensity. So now I'm kind of doing 20 to 25-hour weeks with some racing tied in. Okay. And then I love racing fast, so I like doing these stage races and marathons. Mm-hmm. And I find that gives me the top end I need to win these 24s. Yeah. And then the endurance is there from all these big adventures.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask how your training is different than preparing for, say, a stage race or the XC marathon race, but it sounds like, I mean, you're not training for those races, but those races are a part of your training. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, to be fast at 24 hours, you just need to you need to put the miles in, and then you need the top end speed, and then you need to rest the months leading up to it. Make sure you're ready to dig deep, because if you go into 24-hour tired, it's going to show it at midnight. Yeah. So, I mean, the weeks before a 24-hour, I'll make sure I get a good volume session in, and then dial it back to make sure I show up rested and ready to pin it.
Yeah. I mean, do you look forward to those races, or do you get nervous? Like, I don't know. It sounds like the amount of effort you have to put into it doesn't sound pleasant, the race itself, but is that how it is? Or is it okay because you're able to prepare enough for it?
Well, I used to only ever race one a year because I found I'd forget how hard it was. So if I only did one a year, I totally forget how hard it was and going to the next one kind of oblivious to it. Mm-hmm. I'm racing a few more now. And I think, mentally it's hard to prepare for one because you know how far you're going to have to bury yourself. But if you can block that out and just get to the start line with good health and good fitness, and it looks after itself. Yeah. Huh. So I try not to overthink it until the race starts, and then engage. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's easy to psych yourself out from these big missions if you think too much. Right.
Well, I mean, what is your strategy, if you're willing to share it? I mean, is it like a big secret? Like, you have a strategy you think that helps you do so well at 24-hour racing, or is it something pretty simple?
I mean, every race plays out differently, and I just have it so set in my mind that I'm going to win that I just make sure I do. Yeah. So I think it's just the mental strength is a huge part of it. And I think that's just been built up over the years. Because the body can handle it as long as you fuel it right. And that used to be an issue, but I switched to F2C nutrition, and now the fueling's not an issue. Okay. And then mentally, if I can just tell myself I'm not going to lose, then I'm pretty confident at the start line. Because the thing in 24-hour racing is that there's so many ways to improve every time. The XCO race is so fine line, like it's within seconds, but 24-hour race is so many ways to get faster that you just have to be ready to make the sacrifices to get those extra minutes on the guys.
Yeah. Well, obviously you're focused on solo racing, and very few of our listeners, I'm sure, are going to ever do a solo 24-hour race. But a lot of us have done these longer races as a part of a team. So I'm curious, like, have you thought about what your strategy would look like if you were on a team? Have you seen strategies that teams use that maybe is effective in a race like that?
Yeah, I've actually raced 2 on a team. One with the local Jasper crew one year, and then one with my buddy Steve Gaffney, who did a duo. Okay. And in both those races, the strategy was like I'd do 6 hours at the start, and then we'd go into more of a rotation. Okay. I think teams seem to go well if they just do one lap at a time, full gas. Mm-hmm. If you have real strong riders, they could do 2 laps at a time, kind of get into a bit of a rhythm. Then other guys get more of a break. But I think it's just really depends on who's on your team and what they want to do. Like for me, going lap to lap is so hard because you got to psych yourself up for one lap. Then you only have 3 or 4 hours break and you got to do it again. Right. Where I'd rather lace them up and do a couple laps and then have a 6 or 8 hour break after, as other guys do a couple as well each. Right. Right. But that being said, I haven't really thought too much about it. I more in the solo realm. But yeah, I mean, that being said, I think 90% of teams that go to 24 hours are just there to have a good time. Mm-hmm. So they're happiest going lap by lap. And if you're super serious, then I think you got to make a real plan based on everyone's skill levels. Right. Well, when you're at these races, racing by yourself, do you have like a support team or somebody who's there supporting you during the ride in terms of like nutrition and bike repair and that stuff? Yeah, no, that's a huge part, just having the right pit crew. Mm-hmm. The first like 6 or 8, 24 hours I did, I was at a different crew, which was awesome. But as the races go on, you become pretty incompetent and you need your pit crew to think for you. Mm-hmm. So it really helps having someone there that knows you. So my buddy Leighton, after he saw me almost win the world so many times, he finally said like, okay, I'm coming to Italy with you. We're going to make sure you win it. Yeah. Wow. And that made all the difference, just having him in the pit, because I've raced against him. He's done a pile of 24 hours. And now you come in the pit middle of the night and he would just hand me what I did. I didn't have to say a word. He just knew. Mm-hmm. And he knew what to say when. And then, yeah, we went on to win 3 in a row together, 4 in a row. Wow. With him and my pit crew. Yeah, it was awesome. And then recently I've had my coach, Luke Way, come into the pit. And he's been awesome as well. He's raced 24 hours and he knows my body and how to get me to win. So, yeah, I've been lucky. And I've had friends like as well have helped me out over the years. Like one of my good friends, Taryn, helped me for another 24 hours. She was there for the 5th world title. And just having people there that just know you and what you need, it helps so much the last few hours. So, yeah, I mean, I learned that from Jason English, just watching him win so many, I think he won like 30, 24 hours in a row at one point. Whoa. And he had his wife there for a lot of them, but he just had the pit so dialed in. Like, he doesn't even stop unless they make him stop. Yeah, wow. So I remember one 24 hour in Australia, the first time I thought I could win. Jason won, I ended up second. He won by like 45 minutes. And we looked at the pit stops in the end, and he had 7 minutes of downtime the whole 24 hours. Wow. And I had about an hour. So, I mean, that was basically the difference. Yeah. Yeah. That was a big difference. Yeah. That opened my eyes like, okay, shoot, like we can't stop. Right. Yeah. Well, like as you're describing this, you know, I'm thinking of Chris Etoff, who was the 6-time world champion back, I think, in the early 2000s. And there was a documentary made about his quest for number 7, the 24-hour solo film. And right, I just remember seeing not just him, but all of the solo riders just, you know, after many, many hours on the bike, they were all just kind of like out of it, you know, like, and you could tell that their pit crew, that was what was like keeping them on the bike and like making sure that they knew what they're doing. And yeah, clearly that's a big part of it. And so I'm curious to ask you about your 7th title that you're pursuing. When is the race and where is it being held? And what are you thinking about that race? Well, actually the date and location haven't been set at the moment. Okay. They've had a few venues lined up, but because of the war, the Ukrainian war, they couldn't host in Eastern Europe, obviously. And there's another spot that's going to host it, but that organizer's fighting in the war.
Oh, geez.
So it's kind of like bad luck in that sense. So
Yeah.
we're not sure where it's going to be yet, but yeah, it'll probably be in Europe, I think.
That makes it hard to plan for sure for your training and stuff, right?
It does in a way, but the winter miles is still the same. So like right now I'm just piling on the racing and making sure I get all the depth in there. And then once the dates get announced, I can just adjust the schedule and make sure I fine tune before then.
Right.
So, but yeah, once they announce, it's going to be the focus to get number 7. And yeah, I'll just approach it as any other one. Yeah, I still have the fitness and the bikes and the support, and yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your bike setup. Has it changed over the years? Like, what are you riding right now, and what are you currently planning to use for the race?
Well, I've been super lucky to be riding with Kona for over a decade now, like probably 15 plus years. So I've been riding Kona Hey-Heys at all the 24 hours, and they've just been awesome. They have a new one coming out, which I rode in Australia last year, tested out, and yeah, it was super, super awesome. So I'll be running that again. And yeah, I mean, you don't mess with the working formula, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, do most people ride full suspension bikes in these races?
Yeah, full suspension, especially now they're so light and you can lock them out. And over the course of 24 hours, your body just gets speed up a bit.
Right.
So I think there's a few exceptions, like 24 hours of Old Pueblo is a super fast course. And I actually rode my Kona gravel bike as my, I thought backup bike, but it turned to almost my main bike. Yeah, the Kona Ouroboros, I put 2.25 Maxxis tires on it, little suspension fork, and it was awesome, super fast.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I rode it for 6 out of 10 laps, the Hey for 4.
Okay. That's interesting. You're allowed to switch bikes during the race?
Yep. Yeah, everyone shows up with, most people show up with 2 bikes just for mechanicals and when you got to swap lights and all kinds of stuff like that. And yeah, it was interesting. Like the Hey was way comfier to ride, but the Ouroboros was faster in sections and it's just more engaging on that course. The Hey was like almost too much bike for such a smooth course.
Yeah.
You don't even have to think, you just like point and shoot. With a gravel bike, I actually had to like pick lines and stuff a little bit. So just for engaging the mind around it a bit more.
Yeah.
But that's a one-off. I'm pretty sure at Worlds they'll be racing 2 Hey-Heys.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Well, yeah. Before we were recording too, you were mentioning that you weren't feeling well during the race at Old Pueblo. Well, I mean, what does it take to do that? Like to race when you're not feeling well? I mean, is that something that you've had to do in the past? Like, do you have experience with, or is that just kind of like a one-off thing?
No, one of the first 24 hours I did in Canmore, I was sick leading into it. And I tried to fake it, but at hour 10 or 12, I mean, you can't really fake being sick.
Yeah.
And I went from doing like 1 hour laps to a 3 hour lap.
Wow.
And one of the local riders, Dallas Morris, he passed me twice out on my 1 lap. And he kept telling my pit crew that I was coming. And then I got to the pit and there's like no question, like, yeah, lights out, I'm shutting it down.
Yeah.
So yeah, leading to Old Pueblo, I was sick for a week in Canada, but I was starting to get healthier. So I hopped on a plane down to Tucson and then it came back again a bit. So I wasn't fully healthy, and those close to me said, like, you know, don't even race. Like, there's no point with all the races you have coming up.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was camped there on race site and woke up race morning. I was like, you know what, I gotta do a couple hot laps anyways.
Yeah.
Test out the gravel bike and the Hey and just like get some racing going. So I was planning to do 3 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
Just to kind of prime myself for this next bunch of racing. And I was actually feeling pretty good. So I think I rode 12 hours and had a decent lead. But at that point, I mean, I wasn't operating at 100%. And my pit crew's just like, you know what, there's no point because you're going to bury yourself and be out for probably a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, they might be right. I'm going to dig a big hole and I won't be ready for this 8-day race in Colombia and then maybe not Cape Epic. So it was a hard call to pull out when you still feel okay. But yeah, I shut it down and got some rest that night. And here I am in Colombia and I feel ready to go. So I think it's the right call. But yeah, no, for 24 hours is going to find your weakest link. And if you're sick, it's going to find it quicker.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that like the mental aspect of racing 24 hours is such a big part of it. And so I imagine you have a lot of like internal dialogue around this of saying like, should I keep going? Should I not? Like, I really probably should quit. But I mean, I imagine you're not a quitter. So is that tough for you to have to tell yourself, you know, I need to pull it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I probably would have just kept cruising around because I had a nice lead and I could have just cruised around, probably gotten the W, but my pit crew's just like, look, you're way off last year's time. You're not even close to the course record that you're like trying to get. And you're just like operating at 8%. Like you're not getting faster doing this. And yeah, so it was a tough call. I didn't want to really quit, but I knew deep down I should, because the last 12 hours it's really hard. And I'm sure I would have dug a hole it'd still be in if I did that.
Right. Yeah. And again, it sounds like you're having a good crew makes a huge difference, and having them be able to tell you that and you be able to trust them. It sounds like that's huge.
Yep.
We talked about your training recently in the Himalayas. What's the riding like there? I mean, is it like we've seen in pictures and stuff, or like what's kind of the draw of riding in the Himalayas?
Oh man, Nepal is just a cyclist paradise. I mean, you have 3 layers, like the Terai, which is flat, the mid hills, which is kind of rolling 3,000 meter hills, and then the Himalayas, which is like the big ones. So the mid hills is like awesome for the gravel bike. It's like some pavement, some gravel roads, almost no traffic, always a place to stay, warm temperatures. And then the Himalayas is next level. There you want to have your probably full suspension. It's like pretty rugged riding.
Are these trails or still gravel roads?
It's a mix. I mean, there's gravel roads everywhere, and there's also trails everywhere. And no one's really ridden them, so you have to know yourself if it's rideable or not.
Yeah.
Like, I'd say 90% of the riders do like Annapurna circuit, Mustang, like that's the circuit they do. So that riding it's mostly dirt roads, like rough dirt roads. Okay. And mixed in with single track. This past winter, my goal was to find a new route, staying as high as I could in the Himalayas and not having to hike a bike. So it was pretty cool. Like, I found some new dirt roads connecting valleys, and I'd say most of it was dirt roads, but there was some trail, maybe 10%. But most of the trail is pretty gnarly, I'd say. Like, you got to really be on your toes. There's big drop-offs and big rocks. Like, they're made for hiking and donkeys and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's rideable, but you got to be fully on it and have the right setup. Like 2.4 tires, dropper post.
And you're riding fully loaded, I imagine, too, right? You're carrying everything you need, food and water and sleep gear and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the beauty of the Himalayas is that there's tea houses like everywhere. So we just pack clothes, a bit of nutrition, and yeah, that's basically it. Just counting on getting somewhere every night. And we had emergency bivvies just in case. But yeah, so we packed it in like 20-liter backpacks, and then a handlebar bag. No seat bags. You want to be able to get behind your seat for the trails. So, but yeah, you can pack pretty light, and you have to in the Himalayas because you often climb up these 2,000 meter vertical passes, and it's like tough terrain. Like, you'll be climbing for 4 to 5 hours sometimes.
Yeah. Wow.
So you really feel every extra pound that you pack.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine you're at high altitudes there too, right? Like, what do some of these rides top out at?
Southern, I topped out at 5,400 meters on the last trip.
Okay. Wow.
But it seemed like most of the passes would top out around 3,000 to 3,500 meters. Okay. And then you drop down, sometimes down to 500 meters, and then start the next one.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because basically when you go across the Himalayas, you're just going across river valleys. So you go over one valley, drop into the next one, out of that one into the next one. Like, it's wow. Yeah, it's really tough riding, to be honest.
Yeah, it sounds like it. My goodness. Well, as someone who's biked around the world, like what is your favorite place to ride? Where do you keep going back to, or where do you want to go back to?
Yeah, no, Nepal for sure. There's just so much to explore.
Mm.
I mean, I used to always do the Annapurna circuit and kind of the go-to places, but the last few years I've started to explore every side of the country, and the more I explore, the more that opens up. And there's just endless potential there. The Solo Khumbu Valley near Everest, there's an actual little bike park there and a lot of good trails.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it's all at altitude, like 24 to 4,000 meters. Okay. And you can stay at monasteries if you want, or tea houses, or nice hotels. Like, it's a training paradise. Huh. Yeah, it's kind of it's one of the best kept secrets of Nepal, actually.
Yeah. Do you see a lot of riders, foreign riders there when you go?
No, you don't see any. There's one guy, a French guy, Tanguy, that lives there. Mm-hmm. And he brings in riders on guided trips. Okay. And they've actually had an enduro race there the last couple of years, which has brought in some foreign riders. Mm-hmm. So it's starting to get some recognition, but it's just kind of an isolated area. It's about a 10 to 12 hour drive from Kathmandu.
Okay, wow.
And it's just tough access. So yeah, it's not that well known, but it's so cool. There's one mountain, EK Peak. Mm-hmm. You can ride up it, and then it's like a 2,500 meter descent. Wow. And there must be like 5 different trails you can take off of it. So it's amazing. So there's just endless potential.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. So a lot of your rides, it sounds like, and challenges are set up to benefit humanitarian efforts around the world. What are some of the projects you've supported, and why did you choose them?
Well, one of the first ones was to set up a training center in Kathmandu for the local Nepali riders. As the pollution in the city is pretty bad, and in the monsoon it rains a lot and it's super muddy. So it just seemed like the riders need a place to get away from the traffic and just be able to focus on riding their bikes. Mm-hmm. So we did a couple fundraisers to get that open. Okay. And so basically it's a small center, it has a little gym in it, maybe 4 indoor trainers, a couple bikes set up. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just a spot riders can go before or after the rides or for their workout. Yeah. And yeah, just give them, because all the riders are based out of Kathmandu pretty much. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty central. And the governing body doesn't really support the riders with cycling centers over there. So it just seemed like a missing link. Yeah. And then we also hosted a bunch of training camps up at high altitude, because obviously the Nepalis live in one of the best countries in the world to ride. Right. But they don't really have access to the best training grounds, partly because of support and partly because of funding. Mm-hmm. So the idea was to take these riders, I think we took 8 to 10 up, and take them on a 10-day training camp up in the Himalayas. Just train at altitude, do some gym sessions, talk about nutrition, just give these guys kind of an eye-opener to where they live, and just some training tips too from us foreign riders. So I think we hosted 4 of those camps. And yeah, it's cool. I could open up these GoFundMes, and there's so much support from my friends, family, and sponsors that, yeah, it's just so cool. And money goes such a long ways over there. Like, I think for the training center, we were paying $200 a month for it, and now we found a better spot for like $60. Wow. So it's, yeah, $60 a month, and these guys can have a training center. So it's like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Wow. Are you like, it sounds like in your past you were planting trees, right? Which sounds like a really great thing to do. I mean, are you looking for these opportunities to give back, or was this a situation just kind of where you saw a need and you're like, oh wow, like I can help?
Yeah, it kind of stemmed from a project to do the Annapurna circuit in under 24 hours. Okay. It's kind of the typical bike tour in Nepal, which normally it's like a 7-day, 10-day trip as riders acclimate and just like enjoy the scenery. Mm-hmm. And I just looked at it and was like, you can probably do this in a day if you wanted. So that was a challenge, just doing 24 hours. Yeah. And we thought, yeah, let's just do a fundraiser too, so you can get some funds for the Nepalis. And the consensus was that a training center would be the most beneficial to them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what we did the first year. And I think we raised like 5,000 US. And then the next year we raised even a bit more, which allowed us to keep the center going and host a few altitude camps.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I guess that's where it started. And then it carried on. During COVID, I spent 8 months in Nepal.
Wow.
And the first few months of the lockdown was staying up in Solakumbh at a monastery, the Chiwang Monastery.
Mm-hmm.
And the monks just gave me a place to stay while the world was locked down. And yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And I just thought, like, you know what, I got all this time on my hands. We should probably do something. And it seemed like a lot of riders getting into Everesting. So I thought, yeah, let's do an Everesting here. It's like on the footsteps to Everest. And the access road to the monastery was, I think, 300 vertical meters.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, if I do this, whatever, like 30 times, will be an Everesting. So I set out to do it. And I thought, like, these monks, they're not even asking for money for me to stay here. So I'll fundraise to make them a dry house. Because what I realized while I was staying here is that, like, I'd go on my bike rides, come back, wash my clothes, and there's no place to dry your clothes.
Oh.
Kind of a humid, cold climate.
Yeah.
But a dry house is the solution to this. And
okay.
I mean, the monks have 1 or 2 sets of clothes, and they had nowhere to dry them. So yeah, we figured out it cost about $3,000 or $4,000 to build a dry house with a hot shower attached to it, solar hot shower.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was the goal, was to fundraise for that by doing an Everesting. And that Everesting almost killed me because I only had like the local food to eat. It's like buckwheat and potatoes.
Oh my.
And I remember I thought it was going to take me like 10 or 12 hours, and it took me 18.
Oh, wow.
And the monks were so confused just watching me go up and down this road. They like came out with lunch at one point to feed me, and there was a little tap at the top where I could fill my bottle.
Yeah.
But it was just a brutal ride, all cobblestones. So even the descent was super rough.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, I finished it off. And yeah, that was cool. And then eventually I got back to Kathmandu and was there for another 4 months in the pandemic. And it was amazing. The whole city was locked down. So there's like no traffic, no pollution. And we just ride everywhere. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a food issue. A lot of the locals just were running out of food because they live day to day. And a lot of them make their money off of like street stalls. Mm-hmm. And obviously couldn't do that in COVID. So we started doing these food drives where we'd give away packages of like the basics, like rice, beans, soy protein, and a few other things. Mm-hmm. And we do it by region. My buddy Snow Monkey, he's a local in Kathmandu, and he knew where the people needed help. Mm-hmm. So we got permission from the police to go out with support and drop off these food bags. And it was kind of sad. Like we'd have like 50 bags to drop off, and as we're dropping them off, there'd be so many people asking for like, we need one too, and it's like you never had enough.
Yeah. So
I think we did 2 or 3 of these food drives. But yeah, it's just, again, it's something to do while we had all this time on our hands. And again, it was just like, I put up these GoFundMes, and there's so much support coming from around the world to do it. It was easy for us. Like I had the local connection, and it was just, it was everyone that supported it that made it happen.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate pina colada and Thai-iced coffee-flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
More rewards, more savings. With American Express Business Gold, earn up to $395 back in annual statement credits on eligible purchases at select shipping, food delivery, and retail subscription merchants. Enjoy the benefits of membership with the Amex Business Gold Card. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like such a great way to like really connect with the places that you're riding. And, a lot of us, we may not travel around the world, but, we may take a trip or two to ride mountain bikes during the year. And, it's great. Like the tourism economy is a wonderful thing, but I feel like some of us, like maybe that would be a fun way to get to know the community better and to give back more. Like, do you think, is that something that all of us could do? Maybe, like, there's this idea of voluntourism. Like, is that something that, I don't know, are bikes and volunteering, are they connected kind of in your mind, for lack of a better question?
I mean, biking, I guess you get so connected. You get connected to the community pretty easy. Mm-hmm. And you see so many parts of the countries that you're in that you get away from the tourist areas. Like, you see where people are suffering, like you see where you can help out. Right. And I think if you're a cyclist traveling the world, you're privileged. and it just puts you in the spot to be able to help people out. And I think a lot of it's there's a lot of people back home that want to help out, and they just don't know like where to put money, where it's going to really help the locals. And I think when you can go there firsthand and be like, hey, like, look, I'm here in Nepal in this spot, like this money is going to go here to these people. I think it helps. Yeah. It's not like a broad foundation. It's like, yeah, donate here and we'll put the money somewhere. It's like, no, this is like directly where it's going.
Right. You're not getting a tax write-off necessarily. This is just, you're doing it because there's a need. Yeah, no, exactly. And I think it's just, I guess one time I was in Kenya training in E10 where all the marathon runners train. Mm-hmm. And a few of my friends are like, hey, there's all these runners that have so much potential, but they don't have shoes. And to me, it's like, shoes is such a basic thing. Right. But you'd have these potential world-class runners running around in their like bare feet or sandals. And it's like, you know what? If you can get a set of good shoes there for like $50, and it might start their career, Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was another fundraiser. It just kind of like fell into my lap. It was like, okay, this is pretty easy to pull off. It's pretty cheap. The fundraiser is like, you donate $50, it's going to buy a set of shoes for this runner. And I had a lot of support for that. And yeah, I guess that's just being in the right place at the right time and having the right support. Yeah, I think you're right that when we're on a bike, we're able to see a lot more in the communities we visit. And yeah, it sounds like you're using that as just not even on purpose. You're just identifying these needs and doing what you can to help out, which is awesome. So finally, I'd like to ask you about some of the projects and rides that you're stoked for this year. Sounds like obviously Worlds is a big focus for you, and you've got some other races planned. What's going on this year? Yeah, no, it's a super exciting season as I'm back on Kona bikes full time, as they had a transition last year with... Right. Yeah. But anyways, the old owners rebought Kona, and I got my job back full time. So I'm super stoked to be back on... Yeah. Awesome. Kona race bikes. And yeah, I can't wait. It's like, yeah, deja vu part 2. It's, so yeah, I mean, I was looking forward to 24 Hours of Old Pueblo. Kind of a rough start to the season, but the next 2 races, Transcordilleras, 8 days bike packing across Colombia. I'm super stoked to be doing this. Yeah, wow. There's a big lineup of riders like Lachlan Morton, and it's just going to be, yeah, seeing a new country going full gas with some cool guys and girls. And then that's going to be basically my boot camp, as I'll head over to South Africa right after and race Cape Epic with Christoph Stauser. Okay. So that's super exciting. Yeah, we had a great time riding in Nepal the last couple winters, and he asked if I wanted to join him in the Epic this year, and couldn't pass that opportunity up. So we'll be going full gas there. And then yeah, a bit of a break, come back for Sea Otter. Wow, we're only till April. Yeah, it's only April, yeah. Jeez. Yeah, so it's a good kickoff to the year, and then it'll be kind of the normal local Canadian races, hopefully tie in like BC Bike Race, Breck Epic, Oregon Trail, and then really focus on 24-hour Worlds whenever it's announced. Yeah, awesome. Well, Cory, it's been Excellent talking to you. You've got such an amazing story. You've ridden everywhere, and you're just a huge inspiration. So thanks so much for taking the time to talk.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time and making it work. Awesome.
Well, you can follow Cory at Wallace's World on Instagram, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes. That's all we've got this week. We'll talk to you next week.